We are live. We are just discussing how much we love peanut butter and chocolate, specifically Muddy Buddies Chex Mix.
And I'm making ice planets from the Firefly cookbook, which also contain peanut butter and chocolate in droves, plus coconut milk and white chocolate. And oh my god, it's just so good. I dipped them all, and then there was a little bit left, and I was like...
Awesome.
Yeah.
Man, remember when I was little and I used to love white chocolate? Like, that was the only kind of chocolate I would eat. I cannot eat it now. It's too sweet for me.
It is so sweet.
My
And they don't have a bittersweet version. Like for the ganache, it just calls for chocolate chips. So I bought bittersweet chocolate chips because there's plenty of sugar in the recipe already. I'm not gonna fuss. And oh, it made such good ganache. Bittersweet ganache is the best, right?
I'm glad I had a pre-podcast snack. I was starving right before we podcasted. So when you were like, I'm going to be a couple minutes late, I was like, I'm going to make a bagel.
Nice. I miss bagels. I could get bagels from Meg's Homemade to Go does all gluten-free, like celiac safe gluten-free. That's some good shit right there.
Nice.
I'm definitely not celiac, but I had a terrible gut episode after having a single pretzel bite because I couldn't resist 2 days ago. And I was like, okay, never mind. I give up. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Me too. Well, I did figure out how to make my famous, delicious pie crust with a gluten-free bread or flour mix. So I just used the one from Best Recipes, the Test Kitchen, America's Test Kitchen. It's very good. You just have to add less water when you're using the gluten-free bread because it absorbs water differently.
Mm-hmm.
It appears to be really dry, but then you walk away for half an hour and you come back and it's exactly right. If you get it exactly right and then walk away, you come back to mush.
That makes sense. I could see that. It's just very different, like, properties in the flour.
Yeah, and you don't need it to make gluten for a pie crust. In fact, you don't want it to make gluten for a pie crust. So I was certain I could manage it. And my quiches are sacred to me.
I made a really good herb salad, like summer salad type of thing.
Yummy.
Yeah, because I don't really like lettuce. Lettuce is really bitter to me. So I got a bag of broccoli slaw, a bunch of cilantro, parsley, mint, and then I just kind of chopped up the herbs and mixed them in, and then did a dressing with olive oil, lemon juice, a little bit of cumin, and some red pepper flakes.
Nice.
It's so good, and it's so nice because it's really hot here. It's not nice outside.
It is nasty hot outside here, but we've got the full house AC, so this room is a fridge because I can't shut the vents any more than they're already shut, and it doesn't circulate. So I'm in my warms. Upstairs is perfectly comfortable. I really, 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 really like having central AC.
Yeah, my AC here is good too.
We got the fridge fixed.
Yay! You have a fridge again.
I have a fridge again, which is why I can make things like ice planets.
I figured you must have a fridge.
Yeah, the dude showed up and said, "Yeah, it's the condenser." And we were like, "Well, do you have one with you?" And he went, "Oh, yeah, this is a known issue." We were like, "You're putting in a better condenser that won't die in 2 to 3 years?" And he went, "No, they don't have one. I'm putting in a condenser that will die again in 2 to 3 years. But it will last longer if we drag the fridge away from the wall and like use the air compressor to blow all the dust out periodically." Once a year.
Okay.
God
Well, note to self: LG fridges. No thanks.
damn it. God damn it. I went to LG because I didn't trust Samsung anymore because I've had so many problems with their washer, dryer, and the microwave. Do you remember the old microwave?
Vividly.
Internet, it only lasted 18 months and you had to press the button so hard your fingers nearly snapped. It was...
Some of us can't do that. Also, some of us have these kind of joints.
Yeah, it's just like Gumby.
Yeah, I can't use thumbtacks because my thumb just keeps going.
You fought the tack, and the tack
And the tack won.
Yeah, and
yeah.
it was heinously obnoxious, and it was something that we bought because we were like, well, we just need something that'll fit in the space. We'll pay for the cheap one. It was like $180. We were like, it's a microwave. It doesn't need bells and whistles. It'll just function, right? No, it didn't fucking function.
I'm sorry.
I was delighted when it broke.
Mine was only like $60, but mine's tiny. Mine's a little like 1.6 cubic foot.
I think at some point, like the dream is to get a hood over the stove so that we can actually get smoke out of the kitchen when it happens, and get one of the teeny tiny microwaves because we use it to reheat coffee, melt butter. That's it. We don't use it for anything big. It's just we get big ones because that's what'll fit in the space for it. But no, I'd rather have a hood.
Yeah, I really like mine. Mine's Gallons, I think, is the brand.
Nice.
It's been doing great for me. I mean, I've only had it for like 2 months, but you know, it hasn't upset me yet.
Good. Is that all we got? Before story time.
That might be all we got. I'm deeply unsatisfied with my hair today, but no one cares.
It's adorbs. It's always adorbs.
Thanks. I'm trying to wear it, so it turns out I don't... Did I tell you about this? That I found out there's like a wave in it? What?
Like, it's kind of late in the game to discover cowlicks, isn't it?
It's not a cowlick. I know about my cowlicks.
Yeah.
That's not the thing. The thing is that, so I was watching this thing that was talking about if you think you have straight hair, but it's really like poofy and unmanageable, you might actually have wavy hair. And
that's what the Morgans were, or Brown specifically, started toweling with a t-shirt instead of a towel to
yeah, so I've been doing that. I know it's like a thing on TikTok, which is not where I found out about it, but I did notice when I was there that their hair was a little, and mine's not really doing much today, but it has a bit of a wave in it, and it's much less like bring.
It looks very anime.
Thank you. It always does.
Possibly Korean boy band. Which is also a compliment because they always have fantastic hair.
I was going to say, I don't know how to react to that.
It's good. Oh God, that was the funniest thing. Speaking of TikTok. So we were waiting in line and we always end up picking the line where, you know, an old person is writing a check and they've forgotten how to process checks. So we're just entertaining ourselves. And I looked over and there were Tic Tacs and some of them were pink and purple. I was like, oh, what an age to live when there are pink and purple Tic Tacs. And Jason's like, yeah, look, they say berry adventure Tic Tacs. I was like, oh, adventure Tic Tacs. And we laughed about that. And then he pointed to the next one over and was like, those say they're tropical fruit adventure Tic Tacs. I'm like, oh, right. What about the orange ones next to that? Are they orange adventure? And he was like, no, they're just orange look. And we looked and I was like, orange doesn't get to have an adventure. I'm going to take orange on an adventure. I finally found that the theme of my TikTok channel is I'm going to take this little box of scorned orange flavored candies and I'm going to take them on adventures. And he was like, it's a Tic Tac TikTok. And I laughed so hard.
And if you drop one on your foot, then you're going to have a Tic Tac TikTok toe.
Oh, God. Shame. Shame on you. Well, on that note, let's go to the steps of Ungol and fight a giant spider.
Hey. Okay.
And I'm gonna work on ye old this little guy. My little owl that I've been kind of sort of working on off and on for ages. I can get Murray done. No. Okay, hang on 2 seconds. I mean, you don't have to hold on. My computer does.
Okay.
Because I just accidentally unplugged it, and it's not happy with that.
Oh, okay. I was like, what? I
don't get it. Yeah, immediately it was like, your battery's running low. Fuck you. You will never get away with this. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Oh, thank goodness. Close. No. Ha ha.
So I don't remember quite where we were. Because we're
Oh, I've got my book right.
If he's false, he's false, is the last bit that I remember.
Sleep then, master. Lay your head in my lap.
Okay, so we did get there. All right, cool. And so Gollum found them hours later when he returned, crawling and creeping down the path out of the gloom ahead. Sam sat propped against the stone, his head dropping sideways and his breathing heavy. In his lap lay Frodo's head, drowned deep in sleep. Upon his white forehead lay one of Sam's brown hands, and the other lay softly upon his master's breast. Peace was in both their faces. Gay?
Yes, but adorably gay.
Really cute. Aww. Gollum looked at them. A strange expression passed over his lean, hungry face. The gleam faded from his eyes, and they went dim and gray, old and tired. A spasm of pain seemed to twist him. You right? Okay, I'm just going to keep reading. Seemed to twist him, and he turned away, peering back up towards the past, shaking his head, as if engaged in some interior debate. Then he came back, and slowly putting out a trembling hand, very cautiously he touched Frodo's knee. Oh, one moment. Robin's computer shut down. She'll be back. Very cautiously he touched Frodo's knee, but almost the touch was a caress. For a fleeting moment, could one of the sleepers have seen him, they would have thought that they beheld an old weary hobbit, shrunken by the years that had carried him far beyond his time, beyond friends and kin and the field and streams of youth, an old, starved, pitiable thing. But at that touch, Frodo stirred and cried out softly in his sleep, and immediately Sam was awake. The first thing he saw was Gollum, pawing at Master as he thought. "Hey, you," he said roughly. "What are you up to?" "Nothing, said Gollum softly. "Nice, Master." "I dare say," said Sam. "Well, where have you been off to? Sneaking off and sneaking back, you old villain." Gollum withdrew himself, and a green glint flickered under his heavy lids. Almost spider-like he looked now, crouched back on his bent limbs with his protruding eyes. The fleeting moment had passed beyond recall. Sneaking, he hissed. "Hobbits always so polite, yes. Oh, nice hobbits. Smeagol brings them up secret ways that nobody else could find. Tired he is. Thirsty he is. Yes, thirsty. And he guides them. He searches for paths, and they say sneak. Sneak. Very nice, friends. Oh, yes, my precious. Very nice." Sam felt a bit remorseful, though not more trustful. "Sorry," he said. "I'm sorry, but you startled me out of my sleep. And I shouldn't have been sleeping, and that made me a bit sharp." But Mr. Frodo, he's that tired, I asked him to have a wink. Well, that's how it is. Sorry. Well, where have you been to? Sneaking, said Gollum, and the green glint did not leave his eyes. Oh, very well, said Sam. Have it your own way. I don't suppose it's so far from the truth. And now we'd all better be sneaking along together. What's the time? Is it today or tomorrow? Hello.
Hi. Did you read on without me?
I did. Do you want me to go back?
That was super frustrating. I don't know. I don't know what I missed.
Gollum came and woke up Sam and Frodo, and he and Sam had a conversation.
That's a fucking moment, too. No, it's okay. I have it engraved on my heart.
Okay.
The problem was that the outlet I kept trying to plug my computer back into isn't one that's working. I didn't know that. So it kept saying, no, the battery's dead. And I'm like, you're plugged in. All right, let's see if we can do this without causing that problem again. Looks like we're good. Ugh. Stop it. No. Stop. Close. Are you... Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. What? Ah! I'm gonna kill something. Oh.
Okay, not yourself.
No. Okay. For whatever reason, the cord wants to dangle. When I try to prop it up on something, it stops working. Yeah.
Is there like a converter pack in the middle of the cord?
There sure is.
Probably if when you change direction it's not working, there's probably a loose connection right there.
That's what I'm thinking, but I'm not going to troubleshoot it right now. Hopefully, let's see. Yeah, the little plug that plugs into the computer has a little light on it, so I can keep track.
Okay.
It is currently lit. We are good.
Good.
Sorry, everybody. By which I mean you. Pray continue.
All right. Well, I'm going to go back a little bit because I really enjoy this line. Gollum goes on his rant about how they accuse him of sneaking and he's just trying to help.
Yep.
And Sam apologizes and, I'm sorry, but where have you been to? Sneaking, said Gollum. And the green glint did not leave his eyes. Oh, very well, said Sam. Have it your own way. I don't suppose it's so far from the truth. And now we'd better all be sneaking along together. What's the time? Is it today or tomorrow? It's tomorrow, said Gollum. Or this was tomorrow when hobbits went to sleep. Very foolish, very dangerous, if poor Smeagol wasn't sneaking about to watch. I think we shall get tired of that word soon, said Sam. But never mind, I'll wake Master up. Gently he smoothed the hair back from Frodo's brow, and bending down, spoke softly to him. Wake up, Mr. Frodo, wake up. Frodo stirred and opened his eyes and smiled, seeing Sam's face bending over him. Calling me early, aren't you, Sam? He said. It's dark still. Yes, it's always dark here, said Sam. Gollum's come back, Mr. Frodo, and he says it's tomorrow, so we must be walking on. The last lap. Frodo drew a deep breath and sat up. The last lap, he said. Hello, Smeagol. Found any food? Have you had any rest? No food, no rest, nothing for Smeagol, said Gollum. He's a sneak. Sam clicked his tongue, but restrained himself. Don't take names to yourself, Smeagol, said Frodo. It's unwise, whether they are true or false. Smeagol has to take what's given him, answered Gollum. He was given that name by kind Master Samwise, the hobbit that knows so much. Frodo looked at Sam. Yes, sir, he said. I did use the word, waking up out of my sleep, sudden and all, and finding him at hand. I said I was sorry, but I soon shan't be. Come, let it pass then, said Frodo. But now we seem to have come to the point, you and I, Smeagol. Tell me, can we find the rest of the way by ourselves? We're in sight of the pass, of a way in, and if we can find it now, then I suppose our agreement can be said to be over. You have done what you promised, and you're free. Free to go back to food and rest, wherever you wish to go, except to servants of the enemy. And one day I may reward you, I, or those that remember me. No, not yet, Smeagol whined. Oh, no, they can't find the way themselves, can they? Oh, no, indeed. There's the tunnel coming. Smeagol must go on. No rest, no food, not yet. Chapter 9, Shelob's Lair.
Yeah.
By the way, I have titled this episode, Oh, That Kind of Ungol. It may indeed have been daytime now, as Gollum said, but the hobbits could see little difference, unless perhaps the heavy sky above was less utterly black, more like a great roof of smoke, while instead of the darkness of deep night, which lingered still in cracks and holes, a gray blurring shadow shrouded the stony world about them. 1 second, drink of water.
Mm-hmm.
They passed on, Gollum in front and the hobbits now side by side, up the long ravine between the piers and columns of torn and weathered rock, standing like huge misshapen statues on either hand. There was no sound. Some way ahead, a mile or so, perhaps, was a great grey wall, a last huge upthrusting mass of mountain stone. Darker it loomed, and steadily it rose as they approached, until it towered up high above them, shutting out the view of all that lay beyond. Deep shadow lay before its feet. Sam sniffed the air. Oh, that smell, he said. It's getting stronger and stronger. Presently they were under the shadow, and there in the midst of it they saw the opening of a cave. This is the way in, said Gollum softly. This is the entrance to the tunnel. He did not speak its name. Torech Ungol, Shelob's lair. Out of it came a stench, not the sickly odor of decay in the meads of Morgul, but a foul reek, as if filth unnameable were piled and hoarded in the dark within.
She's a hoarder.
I mean, she did have a lot of... Well, we'll get to that.
Yep.
Is this the only way, Smeagol? Said Frodo. Yes, he answered. Yes, we must go this way now. You mean to say you've been through this hole? Said Sam. Phew. But perhaps you don't mind bad smells. Gollum's eyes glinted. He doesn't know what we mind, does he, precious? No, he doesn't. But Smeagol can bear things, yes. He's been through, oh yes, right through. It's the only way. And what makes the smell, I wonder, said Sam. It's like, well, I wouldn't like to say. Some beastly hole of the orcs, I'll warrant, with 100 years of their filth in it. Well, said Frodo, orcs or no, if it's the only way, we must take it. Drawing a deep breath, they passed inside. In a few steps, they were in utter and impenetrable dark. Not since the lightless passages of Moria had Frodo or Sam known such darkness, and if possible, here it was deeper and denser. There were airs moving, and echoes, and a sense of space. Here the air was still, stagnant, heavy, and sound felt dead. They walked, as it were, in a black vapor wrought of veritable darkness itself that, as it was breathed, brought blindness not only to the eyes but to the mind, so that even the memory of colors and of forms and of any light faded out of thought. Night always had been and always would be, and night was all.
That line mattered a lot to me right after my surgery because, as you know, they were giving me narcotics for the pain, and narcotics do nothing for me but make it difficult to breathe. So I was in all the pain from the surgery, plus rocks on my chest, and that line was how my brain felt. That's how narcotics always make me feel. Like, they gave me Percocet after my C-section, and I dreamed that I didn't care enough about my kid to feed it. Like, it does very bad things to my brain. So it was comforting during that interminable night to know that Tolkien had written what I was going through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the big things about stories, right? Is that they tell us that other people have been where we are and gone through.
Yeah. Come out the other side. Oh, that was a miserable night. So yeah, been there, Frodo. I feel you. Let's keep going. Come out the other side, shall we?
I don't know if we'll get all the way to the other side, but we'll get as close as we can.
Excellent.
But for a while they could still feel, and indeed the senses of their feet and fingers at first seemed sharpened almost painfully. The walls felt, to their surprise, smooth, and the floor, save for a step now and again, was straight and even, going ever up at the same stiff slope. The tunnel was high and wide, so wide that, though the hobbits walked abreast, only touching the side walls with their outstretched hands, they were separated, cut off alone in the darkness. Gollum had gone in first, and seemed to be only a few steps ahead. While they were still able to give heed to such things, they could hear his breath hissing and gasping just in front of them. After a time, their senses became duller, both touch and hearing seemed to grow numb, and they kept on, groping, walking, on and on, mainly by the force of the will with which they had entered, will to go through, and desire to come at last to the high gate beyond. Before they had gone very far, perhaps, but time and distance soon passed out of his reckoning, Sam on the right, feeling the wall, was aware that there was an opening at the side. For a moment he caught a faint breath of air less heavy, and then they passed it by. "There's more than one passage here," he whispered with an effort. It seemed hard to make his breath give any sound. "It's as orc-like a place as ever there could be." After that, first he on the right and then Frodo on the left passed 3 or 4 such openings, some wider, some smaller. But there was as yet no doubt of the main way, for it was straight and did not turn, and still went steadily up. But how long was it? How much more of this would they have to endure, or could they endure? The breathlessness of the air was growing as they climbed, and now they seemed often in the blind dark to sense things brush against their heads or against their hands. Long tentacles or hanging growths, perhaps. You could not tell what they were. Oh, that's so gross.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And still the stench grew. It grew until almost it seemed to them that smell was the only clear sense left to them, and that was for their torment.
Yeah.
1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. How many had they passed in this lightless hole? Hours, days, weeks, rather. Sam left the tunnel side and shrank towards Frodo, and their hands met and clasped, and so together they still went on.
Gay power!
At length Frodo, groping along the left-hand wall, came suddenly to a void. Almost he fell sideways into the emptiness. Here was some opening in the rock far wider than any they had yet passed, and out of it came a reek so foul and a sense of lurking malice so intense that Frodo reeled. And at that moment Sam too lurched and fell forwards. Fighting off both the sickness and the fear, Frodo gripped Sam's hand. "Up," he said in a hoarse breath without voice. "It all comes from here, the stench and the peril. Now for it, quick!" Calling up his remaining strength and resolution, he dragged Sam to his feet and forced his own limbs to move. Sam stumbled beside him. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, at last 6 steps. Maybe they had passed the dreadful unseen opening, but whether that was so or not, suddenly it was easier to move, as if some hostile will for the moment had released them. They struggled on, still hand in hand. But almost at once they came to a new difficulty. The tunnel forked, or so it seemed, and in the dark they could not tell which was the wider way, or which kept nearer to the straight. Which should they take, the left or the right? They knew of nothing to guide them, yet a false choice would almost certainly be fatal. "Which way is Gollum gone?" panted Sam. "And why didn't he wait?" "Smeagol," said Frodo, trying to call. "Smeagol," but his voice croaked, and the name fell dead almost as it left his lips. There was no answer, not an echo, not even a tremor of the air. "He's really gone this time, I fancy," muttered Sam. "I guess this is just exactly where he meant to bring us. Gollum. If ever I lay hands on you again, you'll be sorry for it." Presently, groping and fumbling in the dark, they found that the opening on the left was blocked. Either it was a blind, or else some great stone had fallen in the passage. "This can't be the way," Frodo whispered. "Right or wrong, we must take the other." "And quick," Sam panted. "There's something worse than Gollum about. I can feel something looking at us."
Ah.
They had not gone more than a few yards when from behind them came a sound, startling and horrible in the heavy padded silence. A gurgling, bubbling noise, and a long, venomous hiss. They wheeled round, but nothing could be seen. Still as stones they stood, staring, waiting for they did not know what. "It's a trap," said Sam, and he laid his hand on the hilt of his sword. "It's a trap!" And as he did so, he thought of the darkness of the barrow whence it came. "I wish old Tom was near us now," he thought. Then as he stood, darkness about him, and a blackness of despair and anger in his heart, it seemed to him that he saw a light in his mind, almost unbearably bright at first, as a sun ray till the eyes of one long hidden in a windowless pit. Then the light became color, green, gold, silver, white. Far off, as in a little picture drawn by elven fingers, he saw the Lady Galadriel standing on the grass in Lorien, and gifts were in her hands. "And you, ring-bearer," he heard her say, remote but clear, "for you I have prepared this." The bubbling hiss grew nearer, and there was a creaking as of some great jointed thing that moved with slow purpose in the dark. A reek came on before it. "Master! Master!" cried Sam, and life and urgency came back into his voice. "The lady's gift, the star-glass. A light to you in dark places, she said it was to be. The star-glass." "The star-glass," muttered Frodo, as one answering out of sleep, hardly comprehending. "Why, yes. Why had I forgotten it? A light when other lights go out. And now indeed light alone can help us." Slowly his hand went to his bosom, and slowly he held aloft the phial of Galadriel. For a moment it glimmered, faint as a rising star struggling in heavy earthward mists, and then as its power waxed and hope grew in Frodo's mind, it began to burn and kindled to a silver flame, a minute heart of dazzling light, as though Eärendil himself had come down from the high sunset paths with the last Silmaril upon his brow. The darkness receded from it until it seemed to shine in the center of a globe of airy crystal, and the hand that held it sparkled with white fire. Frodo gazed in wonder at this marvelous gift that he had so long carried, not guessing its full worth and potency. Seldom had he remembered it on the road until they came to Morgul Vale, and never had he used it for fear of its revealing light. "Aya Eärendil Elenion and Galima," he cried, and knew not what he had spoken, for it seemed that another voice spoke through his, clear, untroubled by the foul air of the pit. But other potencies there are in Middle-earth, powers of night, and they are old and strong. And she that walked in the darkness had heard the elves cry that cry far back in the deeps of time, and she had not heeded it, and it did not daunt her now. Even as Frodo spoke, he felt a great malice bent upon him, and a deadly regard considering him. Not far down the tunnel, between them and the opening where they had reeled and stumbled, he was aware of eyes growing visible. 2 great clusters of many-windowed eyes, the coming menace unmasked at last.
Yee.
The radiance of the star glass was broken and thrown back from their 1,000 facets. But behind the glitter a pale, deadly fire began steadily to glow within, a flame kindled in some deep pit of evil thought. Monstrous and abominable eyes they were, bestial, and yet filled with purpose and with hideous delight, gloating over their prey trapped beyond all hope of escape. Frodo and Sam, horror-stricken, began slowly to back away, their own gaze held by the dreadful stare of those baleful eyes. But as they backed, so the eyes advanced. Frodo's hand wavered, and slowly the file drooped. Then suddenly, released from the holding spell to run a little while in vain panic for the amusement of the eyes, they both turned and fled together. But even as they ran, Frodo looked back and saw with terror that at once the eyes came leaping up behind. The stench of death was like a cloud about him. "Stand! Stand!" he cried desperately. "Running is no use." Slowly the eyes crept nearer. "Galadriel!" he called, and gathering his courage, he lifted up the vial once more. The eyes halted. For a moment their regard relaxed, as if some hint of doubt troubled them. Then Frodo's heart flamed within him, and without thinking what he did, whether it was folly or despair or courage, he took the vial in his left hand and with his right hand drew his sword. Sting fleshed out, and the sharp elven blade sparkled in the silver light, but at its edges a blue fire flicked. Then, holding the star aloft and with the bright sword advanced, Frodo, Hobbit of the Shire, walked steadily down to meet the eyes. They wavered. Doubt came into them as the light approached. One by one, they dimmed, and slowly they drew back. No brightness so deadly had ever afflicted them before. From sun and moon and star they had been safe underground, but now a star had descended into the very earth. Still it approached, and the eyes began to quail. One by one they all went dark. They turned away, and a great bulk beyond the light's reach heaved its huge shadow in between. That's really hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
They were gone.
For now.
"Master! Master!" cried Sam. He was close behind, his own sword drawn and ready. Stars and glory, but the elves would make a song of that if ever they heard of it. And may I live to tell them and hear them sing. But don't go on, master. Don't go down to that den. Now's our only chance. Now let's get out of this foul hole. And so they turned once more, first walking and then running. For as they went, the floor of the tunnel rose steeply, and with every stride they climbed higher above the stenches of the unseen lair, and strength returned to limb and heart. But still the hatred of the Watcher lurked behind them, blind for a while perhaps, but undefeated, still bent on death. And now there came a flow of air to meet them, cold and thin. The opening, the tunnel's end, at last was before them. Panting, yearning for a roofless place, they flung themselves forward, and then in amazement they staggered, tumbling back. The outlet was blocked with some barrier, but not of stone. Soft and a little yielding it seemed, and yet strong and impervious. Air filtered through, but not a glimmer of any light. Once more they charged and were hurled back. Oh, this part's so gross.
Right?
You threw your whole body into that. Ugh.
Ugh.
Holding aloft the vial, Frodo looked, and before him he saw a grayness which the radiance of the star-glass did not pierce, and did not illuminate, as if it were a shadow that, being cast by no light could dissipate. Across the width and height of the tunnel a vast web was spun, orderly as the web of some huge spider, but denser woven and far greater, and each thread was as thick as rope. Sam laughed grimly. Cobwebs, he said. Is that all? Cobwebs. But what a spider. Have at 'em. Down with 'em. In a fury, he hewed at them with his sword, but the thread that he struck did not break. It gave a little and then sprang back like a plucked bowstring, turning the blade and tossing up both sword and arm. 3 times Sam struck with all his force. And at last one single cord of all the countless cords snapped and twisted, curling and whipping through the air. One end of it lashed Sam's hand, and he cried out in pain, starting back and drawing his hand across his mouth. It'll take days to clear the road like this, he said. What's to be done? Have those eyes come back? No, not to be seen, said Frodo. But I still feel that they are looking at me, or thinking about me, making some other plan, perhaps. If this light were lowered, or if it failed, they would quickly come again. Tripped in the end, said Sam bitterly, his anger rising again above weariness and despair. Gnats in a net. May the curse of Faramir bite that Gollum, and bite him quick. That would not help us now, said Frodo. Come, let us see what Sting can do. There were webs of horror in the dark ravine. Let us see what Sting can do. It is an elven blade. There were webs of horror in the dark ravines of Beleriand where it was forged. But you must be the guard and hold back the eyes. Here, take the star glass. Do not be afraid. Hold it up and watch.
Nice.
Then I think we have time to do this one more little section. Get to a slightly better stopping place. Slightly.
Right.
Then Frodo stepped up to the great grey net and hewed it with a wide sweeping stroke, drawing the bitter edge swiftly across a ladder of close-strung cords, and at once springing away. The blue gleaming blade shore through them like a scythe through grass, and they leaped and writhed and then hung loose. A great rent was made. Stroke after stroke he dealt, until at last all the web within his reach was shattered, and the upper portion blew and swayed like a loose veil in the incoming wind. The trap was broken. Come, cried Frodo. On, on! Wild joy at their escape from the very mouth of despair suddenly filled all his mind. His head whirled as with a draught of potent wine. He sprang out, shouting as he came. It seemed light in that dark land to his eyes that had passed through the den of night. The great smokes had risen and grown thinner, and the last hours of a somber day were passing. The red glare of Mordor had died away in sudden gloom. Yet it seemed to Frodo that he looked upon a morning of sudden hope. Almost he had reached the summit of the wall, only a little higher now. The cleft Cirith Ungol was before him, a dim notch in the black ridge, and the horns of rock darkling in the sky on either side. A short race, a sprinter's course, and he would be through. The pass, Sam! He cried, not heeding the shrillness of his voice that, released from the choking airs of the tunnel, rang out now high and wild. The pass! Run! Run, and we'll be through! Through before anyone can stop us. Sam came up behind as fast as he could urge his legs, but glad as he was to be free, he was uneasy, and as he ran he kept on glancing back at the dark arch of the tunnel, fearing to see eyes or some shape beyond his imagining spring out in pursuit. Too little did he or his master know of the craft of Shelob. She had many exits from her lair.
Dun, dun, dun!
Dun-dun! How's the owl coming?
Adorable. He's got a very nice face on this side, and he's got a super derpy like face on this side. Because I didn't manage to replace the black beeswax or the beeswax with black right away.
Mm-hmm.
So like the last of the old beeswax is still clear and was really hard to use. I don't like using clear beeswax for this.
Makes sense.
Right?
I'm excited to see him when he's finished.
Right? I don't know when that will be. Mostly just work on him down here, and I mostly spend my time down here either with you or being a vampire. You know.
That was my vampire noise.
Nice.
I always label my bulk spices from Sprouts with like silly labels.
Yeah.
And currently my garlic powder says vampire repellent. And every time I look at it, I just imagine a vampire being like, rude.
Oh, yeah. That is whimsical.
It is.
I'm going to finish this dark brown, but you don't have to stick around for that if you don't want to.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and have some real dinner, I think.
That's a good plan. I like this plan.
Yes.
Real dinner is good. And I love you. I want you to eat.
I love you too.
So I shall see you next Monday.
Yes, indeed.
Woot.
What?
Okay. Cuidado.
Llamas.